Section 8, Providing Information to a Client. Introduction. Information can protect a client or create risk. In Section 7, we discuss the standard of care and how Arizona real estate licensees are expected to act with reasonable skill, care, and professionalism. Now we move into one of the most common places where that standard of care shows up, providing information to a client. Every day, agents answer questions about roofs, square footage, permits, zoning, schools, repairs, HOA rules, septic systems, wells, financing, inspections, and property condition. Some of those questions are clearly within the agent's role. Others are not. The key is knowing when to communicate information, when to verify information, and when to recommend a qualified professional. The agent is a real estate professional, not every professional. Arizona real estate licensees are expected to be knowledgeable, careful, and honest. But they are not expected to be roofers, attorneys, surveyors, appraisers, engineers, tax advisors, or home inspectors. The ADRE rule on communicating information requires a salesperson or broker to exercise reasonable care in obtaining information material to the client's interests and accurately communicating that information to the client. It also states that the licensee is not required to have expertise outside the areas required to obtain a real estate license. That is an important balance. Agents must not ignore material information, but they also should not pretend to be experts in areas outside their license. Rules updated. Reasonable care and communication under AAC R4281101. A licensee must exercise reasonable care in obtaining and communicating information that is material to the client's interests and relevant to the transaction. This means the agent should ask, is this information important to the client's decision? Do I know it is accurate? Do I have reason to question it? Should I recommend professional verification? A good agent does not just pass along questionable information and hope for the best. Real-world example, the new roof problem. A seller says the roof is basically new. The buyer's agent notices curled shingles, water stains on the ceiling, and buckets in the garage. The agent should not say, "Great news, the seller says the roof is new." The better response is, "The seller has represented that the roof is newer, but I see some things that may need further review. I recommend that you have a qualified roofing professional inspect it during the inspection period." That is reasonable care when the client questions the information. The ADRE policy guidance explains that licensees are expected to take reasonable steps to help clients confirm or verify information when a reasonably prudent real estate professional has reason to question the accuracy of the information, or when the client questions the accuracy of the information. So if a buyer says, "Are we sure this addition was permitted?" the agent should not brush it off. A better answer would be, "That is an important question. Let's recommend that you verify permit records with the city or county before your inspection period ends." That response helps the client protect themselves and keeps the agent in a proper role. The danger of overconfidence. One of the biggest risks in real estate is the agent who answers too quickly. A client asks, "Can I build a guest house here?" The agent says, "Absolutely." A client asks, "Is this property line where the fence is?" The agent says, "Yes, that looks right." A client asks, "Will this qualify for FHA?" The agent says, "No problem." Those answers may sound helpful, but they can create liability if they are wrong. A better agent knows how to guide without guessing. The better answer, verify with the right professional. A professional response sounds like this. "That may be possible, but we need to verify it with the proper source." For zoning, recommend the city or county. For property lines, recommend a surveyor. For roof condition, recommend a roofer or home inspector. For loan qualification, recommend the lender. For legal rights, recommend an attorney. For tax consequences, recommend a CPA or tax professional. That is not avoiding service. That is providing better service. Connection to the NAR Code of Ethics. The material also connects this issue to Article 2 of the National Association of Realtors Code of Ethics, which states that realtors should avoid exaggeration, misrepresentation, or concealment of pertinent facts. However, realtors are not required to discover latent defects, advise on matters outside the scope of their real estate license, or disclose confidential facts protected by agency law. This fits perfectly with Arizona's standard. Be honest, be careful, disclose what should be disclosed, and do not act like an expert in everything. Real-world example, square footage confusion. A buyer asks, "Is this home really 2,400 square feet?" The MLS says 2,400. The tax records say 2,250. The seller says an addition made it larger. The agent should not pick the number they like best. A careful agent would say, there are different square footage sources showing different numbers. If square footage is important to you, we should recommend that you verify it through an appraiser, architect, builder, or other qualified professional. That protects the client and avoids misrepresentation. The restatement rule, false information can create liability. The course material also references Restatement Second of Torts, Section 552, which provides that a person who supplies false information for the guidance of others in a business transaction may be liable for financial loss if they fail to exercise reasonable care or competence in obtaining or communicating the information. In plain English, if people rely on your information in a transaction, be careful. Real estate agents do not have to know everything, but they must be careful with what they communicate. The big lesson: providing information to a client is one of the most important parts of agency. The agent's job is not to guess, exaggerate, or pretend to be an expert. The agent's job is to communicate honestly, recognize red flags, help the client verify important information, and recommend qualified professionals when needed. As we move into the next section, we will continue looking at real-world agency issues where disclosure, communication, and professional judgment can make all the difference. Online discussion questions. Question 1. Why should agents avoid giving advice outside their expertise? Answer. Agents should avoid giving advice outside their expertise because incorrect advice may harm the client and create liability. Instead, agents should recommend qualified professionals when the issue involves legal, tax, inspection, zoning, construction, lending, or technical matters. Question 2. What should an agent do if they have reason to question information provided in a transaction? Answer. The agent should take reasonable steps to help the client confirm or verify the information and recommend appropriate professional or technical assistance when needed. Question 3. Why is simply repeating information sometimes not enough? Answer. If the agent has reason to believe the information may be inaccurate, simply repeating it may fall below reasonable care. The agent should point out the concern and help the client verify the information.